1, 2, 3, 4.
Screen time, screen time, screen time, screen time.
It's my screen time too.
Screen time, screen time.
Hello, and welcome to It's My Screen Time Too, the podcast where two moms review the best and worst in children's programming. From Netflix reboots and YouTube shorts to Disney classics and Pixar blockbusters. We watch, you listen. Find out what you can tolerate watching for family movie night, what to avoid altogether, and what you'll want to watch alone voluntarily. I'm Katie.
And I'm Deborah.
And I have two kids. Kenny, he's 5, and Jay, he's 8.
And I have 3 kids. Tony is 13, Libby and Nate are 10. And I'm just noticing your new microphone setup. It looks like a cartoon.
Well, yes, I'm animated today. No, I just switched my pop filter around so it's in a different position, so it hopefully works better.
Oh, funny. It looks blocky like a Minecraft microphone or something.
I just realized as I was doing that intro that I don't think I've ever said Kenny's name and age first. Do you always list off your kids in age order from oldest to youngest? Because that's what I
Yes.
always do. But
Every time.
I
Yeah.
just switched it around, just playing with stuff here today. It's gonna be wild.
It's like crossing your arms or hands like the opposite way.
Or parting your hair on the other side. Whoa. All right. Well, speaking of crazy things, we have 5 adorable children. What have your 3 adorable children been up to this week? Just so we can get the mom stuff out of the way up front so it doesn't clutter up the rest of the podcast.
Are you familiar with the poetry book I'm Just No Good at Rhyming by Chris Harris?
No.
It's really good. It's a super top favorite all-time book in my household. And Chris Harris just came out with a new book of poems called My Head Has a Bellyache, which Nate read about in a magazine. And so we requested it from the library right away. I'm sure we'll buy it eventually, but it's nice to get like the crisp brand new from the library. And it's so fun and so funny. And like now my kids are old enough to like read on their own and read out loud with like lots of expression. And it's just been a super rewarding experience because I feel like in some deep way that we don't talk about, like some of the reasons why you have kids is because like you want to relive like parts of your own childhood a little bit. And so this is very like, I loved reading Shel Silverstein's poems when I was a kid. And so this is very much that for the next generation.
Oh, this is awesome. I'm going to check it out for sure. Thanks for the recommendation and the adorable story.
How have your kids been doing? What have they done that's cute or terrible?
Well, we are going through a little bit of a tough time in the household in that our beloved older family cat is nearing the end of her kitty cat life. And it is,
Gracie.
yeah, Gracie, it is very sad. And it's particularly sad for me because Gracie was my cat before I had any of these other members of my family, including my husband. So I've been, walking that line between like how emotional I'm trying to be honest with my children about feelings and encourage them to be honest about their feelings. But, I can't like melt into a puddle of goo like I want to because I'm a super sappy, emotional person. But, they know that something's going on. We talk about it. So Kenny last night, because he's the sweetest child on the planet, decided that he was going to sing me a lullaby. Because I always ask him if he wants lullabies at night, and lately he's been saying no because he's too big for them. But then last night he said, Mom, I want to sing you a lullaby. I'm just going to make you up a little lullaby right now.
Oh.
And he sang, My mommy is so great. She keeps us safe. And then he said, it's just a little short one.
What a thoughtful gesture.
Yeah, I think he knows that things have been a little tough, and it was just a nice little bump.
What an adorable little child. That's so cute.
He is pretty adorable. All right, well, before I start crying about the cat, should we move on to screen time in the news?
Let's talk about the Wall Street Journal article by Sarah Needleman from September 11th of this year with the headline, Parents are baffled by the celebrities their kids love.
Okay, so before you start your summary, can we just have like a moment to see if we're on the same page regarding the Wall Street Journal? Like, have you ever felt more middle-aged? Like, I know we talk sometimes about like magazines and like
Hmm.
other things that are like little bells in our mind reminding us that we are now of a certain age, but like reading the Wall Street Journal really is, I think, another milestone on like the middle-age pathway.
It is not something I ever regularly read. Do you read it on a regular basis?
Here's what I did, and I did not realize because I had never done this before, is I subscribed to Apple News Plus, which is a flat fee
Oh.
and it just gives you access to all the things. So
Okay,
now
so
I can read those articles.
well, that seems helpful because the paywall stops me, but also in my mind, the Wall Street Journal is a little more on the conservative side, and I like to get my news from more left-leaning sources always. I'll admit it, it's fine.
Sometimes we're okay with our respective bubbles.
Hmm. I mean, but this one isn't political at all. It's just like a pop culture piece, and I mean that headline is a timeless headline.
Uh-huh.
You could run that headline at any day in the last like 250 years, I think, right? But this, by celebrities, Needleman means YouTube stars, and it interviews a whole bunch of parents who are like around our age about how they just don't get why their kids are into Mr. Beast or Dat Boytre, DhatBoiitre, who's like a TikTok star. I don't know how to say that one. And like these parents that are quoted in the articles, like we don't know what kind of questions the reporter asked them or how long the conversations went and how they got edited down. But these parents just sound so out of touch and like Fred Flintstone, right? Because they're just like, I don't know who this Mr. Beast is. It's garbage.
And
Just
then
like no intellectual curiosity about like what makes them appealing. They're just like insulted that kids don't like to watch the shows that the parents liked when they were kids.
But the funniest part is how there's not even that framing device to the article. Like, it literally is just a collection of quotes of parents being like, "Who is this dude? I don't know. Seems pretty weird." And it doesn't
There
talk at
was
all about why the kids might like these celebrities. Like, it doesn't address, like, the rising popularity of YouTube as a format. It was.
I know. And there's like some that we've watched, like Unspeakable, not necessarily for the podcast, but like I've watched Mr. Beast videos, I've watched Unspeakable videos. I don't particularly want to watch them on my own voluntarily, but because my kids are into them, I'll spend 15 minutes on YouTube just so I can see if it's harmful or harmless. There was a really funny one. I am not familiar with Lanky Box, the quote YouTube duo who shout and play piercing sound effects. But I thought like the dad who's quoted in this article was just like, Lanky Box is terrible, it's obnoxious. And then it's the funniest line. His two oldest daughters, ages 7 and 5, have even started talking like Lanky Box and calling their father bruh. I think that's hilarious.
Oh, for sure. Both of my children call me bra, and I don't think it comes from Lanky Box. I think it comes from one of the Minecraft YouTubers.
Oh, sure.
But that all of that is to say that I don't disagree with the sentiments expressed by a lot of these parents. I am also often baffled by the things that my children choose to like on YouTube. It's just like this article was only half written with like
Yeah, because
no analysis.
adults and kids have always liked different things.
Yes.
It's not like they're liking different things harder. It's not like new. I don't know. I still feel like this when I talk to my parents about like podcasts and they're like, rolling their eyes
Yep.
because they think I'm just so dumb for being into podcasts.
I loved the section at the end of the article where the mom was talking about how she sat down with her kids and they all watched America's Funniest Home Videos together, and they
Mm.
could all finally happily watch something together. And it just seems so silly because that is YouTube.
It did make me feel very superior and kind of sanctimonious, especially considering that we just reviewed Hammy and Olivia as a thing that we're like, our kids like this. I don't know.
But
I don't
let's
know why.
treat it in an open minded manner and assume
Mm-hmm.
that we will find something to like here. And we both did. I mean, he thought the dog was a loaf of bread. Oh, anyway, this article was just really good for a laugh. Thank you for delving into the pages of the Wall Street Journal to read it with me.
Sure. So we have a little bit of follow up from our last episodes ever, in that longtime listeners will know that I'm a huge fan of the Daily Zeitgeist podcast with Jack O'Brien and Miles Gray. And they were talking about shows for kids and how hard it is to find good kids content. So I went on Twitter and I tweeted at them and said that that's what we do. They should check us out. And then they mentioned us on their podcast as something they hadn't listened to, weren't sure if it was problematic or not.
Yeah, I could have done without the tone when they read our title.
But it's fine. I played it for my kids and they were super happy for me. I played it for my husband, Jeremy. He was very happy for me. It was like a very pinnacle moment in my podcast career.
Yay. Way to use Twitter for good, Deborah.
I try. Thank you.
Today we are discussing The Monkey King, a PG animated movie that had its world premiere at the New York Asian Film Festival on July 30th, 2023, and it premiered on Netflix on August 18th, 2023. So it's pretty new. It clocks in at 1 hour and 37 minutes, so in a pretty sweet spot as far as movie length for us and animated kids movies. It was directed by Anthony Stacchi. He previously directed The Box Trolls, which was a movie I always meant to see but never did. It was written by Steve Bensich, Ron Friedman, and Rita Shao. It was animated by Real FX, which is the animation studio behind Scoob, the Netflix movie Rumble. I don't know if you watched that, but we didn't watch it for the pod. Ugly Dolls, another one that I think had a theatrical release, but then ended up on Netflix. And the one that I loved was The Book of Life. Did you see that one? It was like pre-podcast, so before I had kids.
I don't think I did.
Oh, it's really fun. We should do like a throwback episode and review it once the writer's strike deprives us of all content.
Okay.
All right, but back to The Monkey King. This one is the story of the Monkey King who overcomes many enemies and also his own ego to ultimately confront the Dragon King. And if that story sounds familiar, it could be because those characters featured prominently in American Born Chinese on Disney Plus, which we reviewed earlier this year. It could also be because they are popular figures in Chinese mythology. Speaking of American-born Chinese, The Monkey King features Jimmy O. Yang as the voice of the titular Monkey King, but he also played the Dragon King in American-born Chinese. He's either really drawn to that particular story, or there aren't enough diverse roles for Asian American actors. Get on it, Hollywood, once you've got your labor disputes figured out, that is. He is also, side note, the lead in one of my favorite recent holiday rom-coms, Love Hard. Did you see that one?
No.
Oh.
But I'll take your recommendation for it.
Yeah, it was pretty cute in the way that, holiday rom-coms are. So keep your bar low. Why did we pick The Monkey King? Do we really have to have a better reason than it popped up on our Netflix home screen? Do you think?
I actually have one.
Okay, give it to me.
We saw this in we get the magazine The Week Junior. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
news magazine for kids, and they have a pop culture section. So it was in there. And I haven't had Netflix since we got kicked off my brother's account for password sharing. So I've actually never had my own Netflix account. It's always been my brother Dan's, but we got our own just to watch The Monkey King.
Oh man, that is a dubious honor. Slash, speaking of feeling middle aged, getting kicked off your brother's password. Now you're a real grown up.
Now I'm a real grown up. So let's talk about our general thoughts, concept and plot. Tony had to point out to me that this was like the same mythological story as the American born Chinese like side track story. I guess maybe I would have picked up on it, but I appreciated his insight into that before we started watching. What did you think about the entire, just overall concept of it?
Can I ask you a question in response to your question?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that in order to do the work that we do, which, as we mentioned earlier, is to sit down with a piece of media made for children with an open mind, truly believing that we will find something in it to appreciate? And if nothing else, we will appreciate the experience of watching it with our children. But in order to do this, you have to be in a certain headspace, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to believe that I was maybe just in the wrong headspace for this because I
Mm.
caught on to the Monkey King, Dragon King plot being similar to American Born Chinese, which I was really disappointed in and
Mm-hmm.
abandoned halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that immediately gave me kind of a vibe toward the plot of the movie, and I just felt kind of bored with it.
Oh, okay.
But again, I'm willing to believe that that's just where my headspace happened to be and that there's good to be found in the movie. What did you think?
Honestly, I thought it was a little bit, how do I put this in a diplomatic way? I mean, I thought it was almost a little too complex. So I don't know what that says for
Tell
me.
me more.
But
Tell me more.
it's a hero goes on a quest, archetypal story for the most part. But I thought, and maybe it's because it's like, and I don't know very much about Chinese mythology, but I was like confused by, like, what is the Buddha's role in all of this? To me, it seemed like the Buddha was more of a Judeo Christian type of omnipotent guy up in heaven type of thing, which I know very little about Buddhism, but I thought Buddha was like more of a vibe than a guy telling you what to do.
That's interesting. And do you think that maybe they were trying to depict that by making the Buddha like glowy and pixelated and not really fully formed, whereas the other
Mm-hmm.
gods were more corporeal looking? Not that I
Yeah,
think that choice was
possibly.
successful, but
The plot was complicated in that there's like somebody who represents themselves. I don't want to spoil it. There's somebody who represents themselves as one thing, and it turns out they're sort of a double agent doing another thing. And I liked that part of it. And then there was also a part where like they go into hell, which I was like, wow, can they do this in a kids movie? And they did, and it was like comedic and light actually, but I was kind of questioning what somebody from like a real hardcore Christian background would think about it, which I didn't have a problem with, but it was like some of it was surprising to me.
I feel like when they presented this story to us in American Born Chinese, there was a little bit more scaffolding for someone who might not be familiar with it.
Mhm.
Whereas
Yeah.
this just kind of dropped you into the environment, which can be successful. I agree with you that the plot was complicated by the
Mhm.
fact that I didn't know a lot of these traditions, but maybe my bigger beef with it was that it felt like they had one movie, right? The story of the
Mhm.
Monkey King trying to gain immortality and beat the Dragon King, right?
Mhm.
And then they had this other movie that they just kind of stuck onto it and they couldn't decide which one was more important, which is the Monkey King and his sidekick, Lynn, learn the true value of friendship.
Yeah.
And those two never really meshed well together.
Yeah. I mean, we're very conditioned to want an A story and a very clear sub B story. And then a funny run, like a runner, like a C plot, which in this case I think was the Dragon King's sidekick fish. I did enjoy them very much.
Or just the Dragon King in general. Like, he was doing his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about this as an interpretation? The Monkey King as like an introduction to a truly unlikable protagonist just to get my kids ready to watch The Sopranos.
Oh, Katie. When are you going to show them The Sopranos?
I'm just saying, the Monkey King started off as like, oh, maybe he's going to be like a lovable, misunderstood underdog. And then he was just a horrible jerk throughout. And I don't feel like he ever fully redeemed himself in the way that we are taught to expect in children's media. So maybe it was a conscious choice to like introduce children to this gray area and this like nuance. Like, people can be an anti-hero and that can be compelling, but I don't like that as a choice. I'm not an anti-hero person.
That's funny. I watched it with Libby and Nate, and like throughout the movie they kept saying, to kind of an annoying degree, boy, I have mixed feelings about the Monkey King. I really have mixed feelings about the Monkey King. Yeah, and that's often like a discussion in like contemporary literature. Like, can you enjoy? There's like a lot of think pieces on likable and unlikable characters. Often it feels like when a woman is writing an unlikable character, then people tend to have more of a problem with it than when a man is. But yeah, we don't encounter a lot of unlikable characters in children's media. Like, Gru is a villain, but he's a really likable villain.
What
Yeah.
about is it Horrible Henry? You remember Horrible Henry from like
That
5 years?
was really
Horrid
bad.
Henry?
We panned that.
Yeah. So I mean, Monkey King was giving me Horrid Henry vibes.
Okay. So, thumbs down to the Monkey King. Anyone else that you particularly loved or hated? You mentioned Jimmy Yang, who played the Monkey King. There were also a number of really big stars, like Bowen Yang plays the Dragon King. BD Wong plays the Buddha. It's a good cast.
It is. They did get some good voice actors. I loved the like campiness of the Dragon King. I thought it was out of place and mismatched like the rest of the movie was, but I at least found that part to be entertaining.
Yeah.
How about you?
I really, really loved, and this kind of gets into the writing. So the Dragon King is an underwater creature. He can't dry out. So he gets carried around this land that is fast becoming desertified in a bathtub with a shower curtain around it to keep him damp.
I love that. That was a great little touch.
By his little like bottom feeding whiskered like carp fish caretakers. That was funny.
Yeah, I loved his little tub conveyance.
And then Lynn is a good character too. I mean, I would have watched a movie based just on her as the main character.
Yeah, she's the conflicted protagonist, the character that we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
The one, she really reminded me of Raya from Raya and the Last Dragon. Like, she's trying to do the right thing, but she's confused about whether what's right for her heart is right for humanity. Classic.
Okay, so what did you think about the writing? There's like 3 screenwriters credited with this. So I wonder if it was a bit of a, somebody wrote it, somebody punched it up, somebody cut it into pieces. I don't know what the collaboration looked like. I wonder if that was part of why the B stories felt so tacked on.
Yeah, I tried to do a little bit of research on this, and the two writers, and you know what? I threw the page with the names of the writers onto the floor as we were talking, and it's out of reach. I was like, I'm done with that page. Um, so the two male writers were originally attached to this project way back in 2017
Oh,
with
okay.
an animation studio that I believe was called just DreamWorks Asia.
Okay.
And that studio shuttered, or the project, or it got like subsumed by another studio, and the project just kind of went into limbo. So fast forward to 2023, and it's coming out under the auspices of a different studio, and nothing I could find really mentioned, like, did they just bring the third writer, the woman, on once everything else had already been done by these two other dudes, and they never like actually wrote together? I don't know. But it took 6 years to get this made, so I can 100% believe that like there were a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, and sometimes what a studio executive wants isn't really what the audience wants.
It felt
Um,
like the writing had several moments of using current slang that I absolutely hate, because it just means the movie's going to age so terribly. It makes the
mhm,
movie feel ultimately really disposable and
mm-mm.
forgettable, because they're using phrases like hard pass in an attempt to be like hip with the kids.
Yeah,
But that's just going to look bad in 5 years.
right. Totally. I wondered also, there's like sort of a climate change theme because Lynn's like village, the land where she comes from, is like fast becoming uninhabitable to humans because of a terrible drought. And I wondered if that is that in the Monkey King like mythology, or is that a contemporary add-on? I don't know.
I don't know. Despite watching two properties about the story of the Monkey King, I don't know the answer to that, Deborah.
I know. I feel like I need like a picture book
Mm-hmm.
Monkey King to really get the to get solid on the plot.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is not a musical, but there were a handful of songs, and can we call it choreography? If it's animated, sure. What did you think of the music?
I cannot fully find the words to describe how much I hated that metal Monkey King song.
Oh, funny. I
Oh,
liked
it
it.
was like a whole montage done, and the animation style changed to like a more comic booky style of animation for this montage where the Monkey King is fighting demons, and there is this horrible metal song playing underneath it, and uh, I hated it so hard. So please tell me why I should have
Oh.
liked it.
Well, I just liked how the characterization it provided. It was sort of like, you know how in Peter and the Wolf, everybody in the story gets their own instrument. It was like whenever Monkey King goes into action, he got like a little bit of heavy metal guitar music underneath the score. So I just liked that for the characterization
Oh,
because
Deborah,
he
you're so right. Stop it. Stop. Can't I
I
just
mean,
say
it's
that I
not
didn't
my
like
no, it's
it?
not my kind of music. I would never listen to it on my own, but I did like what it was doing.
All right. I didn't even occur to me. I was again perhaps not in the correct headspace to be watching this movie, but thank you.
Did you watch it on a weeknight?
Yeah, I watched it
Yeah,
yesterday.
I watched it on a week, 2 weeknights. We split it up. And so I think that definitely changes how you perceive something. Because if it's like Friday or Saturday and you're like, this is all I'm doing,
Uh-huh.
it's definitely more of an enjoyable experience than if you're like, okay, well, we're going to watch 45 minutes tonight and 45 minutes the next night. And you got to be in bed by 9. Like, it
Mhm.
changes. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you for giving me a pass cuz it was a weeknight.
Okay. How about the song where the little bottom dwelling fish is dressed up as bumblebees?
Yes, that was adorable. And again, like, where did it come from? What movie was this? I don't know. That song and like the big cabaret number that the Dragon King does.
Oh, that was a
Those
good
were
one.
super
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. It makes me think a little bit of Animal Crackers, how it was kind of a mosaic
Mm-hmm.
of a movie.
Yep,
Yeah,
just because it had to
a lot of
do
cooks in
so
that
much
kitchen.
to get
Mm-hmm.
even made. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess we don't want to belittle the efforts that clearly went into it, but I don't think it was ultimately successful. I was going to point out I was going to point out that we've watched maybe a surprising number of animated movies set in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, well, we've watched the vast majority of things that are about white people doing white people things. So is it really a surprising number? But I feel nonetheless like we've watched a lot of these kind of flash in the pan movies. Like, I mean, I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for Wish Dragon because it stars John Cho.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for Over the Moon because John Cho provides a supporting voice.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know where I was going with that. Just like, am I racist to even point it out?
I don't think so. I wondered that when I was looking at the IMDb of the cast. One of those movies, I think we kind of thought was being marketed heavily in China because like that's a huge audience, bigger than the United States. And so of course movie studios, if they're smart, should be creating things that are going to work in both markets.
And especially now with Netflix, it's really leaning into its international content.
But I also wondered as I was looking at the cast, how when was Crazy Rich Asians made? And also Black Panther. Because I feel like that was a little bit, those movies were a little bit of a turning point when you saw like a all cast and crew that was like non-white, and it seemed like from what I read, for what little I read about those two movies, it was like a very incredible environment to work in.
So why wouldn't you want to immerse yourself in that environment again? That's a really good point.
Yeah. I wonder if these movies are is this kind of like a ripple effect or is it like a new trend? I don't know. I'm not a Hollywood insider, so I have no idea, but that's what I those are the questions that I have.
Okay, I'm all for watching movies set in Asia about Asian characters or Asian American characters. I just could use a little break from the Monkey King.
Fair. Fair.
That said, I am really glad that the Monkey King at no point ever stuck his staff in his ear, which was a real sticking point for me, an American born Chinese. So
Yeah,
I was
totally.
glad of that.
I think I just have to point out that my kids said over and over again that Stick was their favorite character.
I liked Stick a lot.
Hmm.
Well, I'll get to this when we do our evergreens. But yeah,
Okay.
were you able to compare this to any show or movie made for grown-ups?
Jeremy and I have been watching the morning show. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we never watched it. So, we're in season one. So, this reminded me of kind of the dynamics on the morning show because you're just never sure, like, who is your friend? Who is your enemy? Who's conspiring against you and you don't know it? So, in that way, it made me think of that.
Okay. I've never seen the morning show, so I can neither confirm nor deny your comparison.
It's good. It's good. And I think season three is coming out soon or is just out.
Two comparisons, one more apt than the other.
Mm-hmm.
So your kids love the character of Stick.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think of this one season show that I think perhaps Kevin and I were the only two people on the planet to watch. It was called American Princess, and it was done by Genji Cohen, who did
Oh,
Weeds
oranges.
and Orange is the New
Oranges.
Black.
Yeah.
Hmm. And it was about this woman that escaped her like hoity-toity New York life upbringing to join the Renaissance Fair circuit. And and there was a character who was like one of the performers at the Renaissance Fair, and for I want to say perhaps the first couple of episodes the joke was that the only thing he ever said was stick. And like every conversation he had was just like a series of him saying the word stick.
Oh,
Um,
funny.
so that made me think of that. No one else will get that reference. But if, again, your stock of TV to watch is running a little low these days, it might be fun. Fun
Mm-hmm.
little cultural artifact there. But mostly, what this movie reminded me of was a classic story of a woman just carrying a man child. Because that was the dynamic that I felt was going on
Yeah.
between Lynn and the Monkey King. And
Mm-hmm.
that, of course, is Knocked Up. The movie that we all thought was
Oh,
funny when it was came out,
gosh.
and now
Oh,
we
yeah.
realize is actually horrible and pretty problematic.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a nice segue into my casting of the gritty HBO reboot, because I would just take Knocked Up sequel, in which Katherine Heigl, who I'm pretty sure is not doing much, so she's probably free
Mm-hmm.
for this, just like leaves Seth Rogen trapped in a mountain and goes on and lives a fulfilling life.
I like that a lot. That's great.
What about you? Did you cast a gritty HBO reboot?
I would cast Donald Glover as the Monkey King, and then I would cast Paulina Alexis, who plays Willie Jack on Reservation Dogs,
Oh,
as Lynn.
okay.
I kind of want to see her in everything.
Uh
I think
huh.
she's really good. And then I would cast somebody like, do you know who Maria Bamford is?
Of course.
Okay, I would cast her as Stick. Because she does like a lot of animation work, I think, and she's got such like funny little voices. I would give Stick more dialogue.
I love it. Do you think it was better when we were kids?
I don't know. Did we even have movies like this when we were kids? I don't think we did. I don't know, like epics like Neverending Story or Princess Bride were better than this.
Yes, obviously. The ones that have stood the test of time better than this. But like we had plenty of rambling, incoherent kids content that
Mm-hmm.
made parents go, "What are you even watching?" when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um but I've always chalked that up to just like a lack of quality control and the fact that we know better now and like
Yeah.
people are paying more attention makes this feel less forgivable. But
Mm-hmm.
we clearly did not have it better from a multicultural standpoint.
Right.
Would you ever watch this alone voluntarily?
No, I would not.
No, no. Hard pass, as they would say in this movie. 10 seconds on whether this is good for our kids.
I think it's fine. It's not something I would want to watch over and over again, but for our upcoming days and months and weeks ahead where we're going to be starved for new content, I think it's fine.
Yeah, I don't think it ranks high on the repeatability scale, but it seemed relatively harmless. My kids at 8 and 5 barely lasted 15 minutes.
Oh,
They
wow.
were out.
Okay.
They had no interest in the plot or tolerance. I don't even think the like metal montage made them interested. So it wasn't for my kids, but I don't think it was actively bad for them. There is
Mm-hmm.
obviously fighting and violence, but the fighting and violence is largely with a stick, which, you know, it's just good old fashioned bashing people around. There's not like blood and gore happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ratings?
3?
2.
Ooh.
What do you think? See it or skip it?
I say see it.
I say skip it. If you are looking for better content with Asian themes, Kung Fu Panda, the original Mulan, Wish Dragon starring our boyfriend John Cho. I mean, there's better stuff.
Thanks for listening to this episode of It's My Screen Time Too. If you enjoyed our show today, please share it with someone you think might enjoy it too. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or a star on Spotify. Actually, 5 stars on Spotify.
No,
What am I
not just
talking
one.
about?
Please, no.
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at MyScreenTime2 or send an email to myscreentime2@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your YouTube suggestions, article recommendations, or general comments about the show or other movie and show suggestions. Our website is myscreentime2.com, where you can subscribe to newsletter posts weekly. Our theme music was composed and performed by me and my adorable children, and our podcast is produced by Katie. You can hear more from us on our other podcast, Spock Talk, where we discuss the life and legacy of Dr. Benjamin Spock. Tune in next time for more real talk about the movies and TV we watch with our kids because we have to and sometimes because we like to.
Bye.
Screen time, screen time, screen time.